Today, we'll be talking about voting rights. So, getting into it, we'll be interviewing and talking to some people about their voting rights, what they believe in, like who can vote. We'll also be talking about, do they think there's enough representation? We'll also be saying if just their opinions. Do they like it? Do they not like it? Do they think more people should vote, not vote? And so a little bit of history about all of this before we get into interviews is the 24th Amendment. In 1964, they removed barriers by prohibiting poll taxes. And in 1965, they secure voting rights for every adult. So any race and all genders, to help them, no matter white, black, Asian, everyone can all vote and get their word out there to create a better country.
And then some key people in these movements were MLK and Ida B. Wells, who just enforced the policies with protests and boycotts. And this was all during the time of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which led to voting and what America is now, where we do have voting. But before we get into this, let's go get into some interviews.
What's your name?
Natalie, good, you know I already.
What grade are you in?
10th.
10th grade. What are your opinions on the current voting age of 18?
I think that, like, it's, like, a good age, but I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a good age.
Perfectly fine, you think?
Well, I think there, like, should be some exceptions. I feel like not all 18-year-olds are mature enough to enter the voting, but I do think there are certain people who are, like, mature enough, and, yeah.
But you think it should stay 18? You don't think it should be higher?
No.
No. Okay. Next, do you think felons should be allowed to vote? Because in some states they're not allowed to vote, even for like small misdemeanor crimes.
I think that it like depends on the crime, and I also think like what their punishment is. Like if they just like were free, like for murder, I don't know, probably not. But like let's say that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't want them voting, but at the same time, if somebody like served their time and like yeah, then I think it's okay.
Okay. And then last question. In the last presidential election of 2020, there was about 66% of eligible voters who voted. Do you think it's a high number, low? Are you surprised by that statistic?
I think like it's like a kind of like a lower number than I would think, because I feel like especially now I feel like a lot of people are like not like very supportive of the government, and like a lot of people don't like the decisions that they are making. So I like am surprised that like they're not like actively trying to change the things. If that makes sense.
Do you think there's any ways we can change and encourage more voters, or it's just going to be like an ongoing problem?
Well, like awareness, but at the same time, like if they don't want to do it, they won't do it. So it's their choice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
My name is Miss Sandoval.
What grade you teach?
I teach 7th grade.
7th grade. What do you think about the voting age right now? 18, should be higher, lower, or you think it's just right?
I think the voting age is right, perfectly. You know, people can make wise decisions after high school. What we hope they could also make their own research as well, do their own research, and everybody has their own right. You got it right. Sorry. Edit that part.
Okay. Do you think there's in some states there's rules where felons cannot vote even for like small crimes they commit? Do you think that's fair? Do you agree with that, or do you think people in prison should be able to vote?
I think for small felons, they should be given the right to vote. Obviously, if you're importing, you know, drugs from Colombia, that's stereotype. Being mad racist. Never mind. Let me take it back. Edit that one part.
What's your name?
My name's Hudson.
What grade are you in?
9th grade.
How do you feel about the voting age of 18? Do you think it's good? Should it be lower or higher?
I think it should be age 14.
14? Why?
Because I want to vote.
You want to vote?
Yeah, I turned 14. Yeah.
Do you think people who are 14 are like smart enough and capable of voting?
Yeah, I feel like I'm smarter than a lot of people, so I got good grades.
Okay. Do you know who cannot vote? There's some people in this country who cannot vote. Do you know like people who cannot vote?
Probably people that are like 6.
No, I'm talking about like felons.
Oh, nah, they should. I feel like if they depends what they got convicted for. You know what I'm saying?
Like, you mean like for like how long the sentence was? Or like a petty crime? They should be off.
Yeah, they should be able to vote.
For the last election in like 2020, it was around 66% of eligible voters voted. Do you think that's a high number, low? Are you surprised by it?
Low-key surprised. I thought it'd be like higher because, I mean, it would be higher if 14-year-olds could vote like me.
Why do you think people are not voting?
They're scared.
Scared? Okay. Do you think we should enforce like a policy like Australia has, where it's like if you don't vote, there's like an extra?
They should give people like $10 to vote.
$10 to vote.
$10. Yeah.
Just encourage it. You think that will work well?
I think that would work pretty good. $10 is $10.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Peace out.
See you, dog.
What's your name, sir?
Lucas Kumar.
Nice to meet you, Lucas Kumar. So,
What's your name?
Gio.
Oh, nice to meet you.
So, how do you feel about the voting age? Do you think it should be lower, higher? And first off, do you even know the voting age?
The voting age is 18.
Okay.
I think it should stay 18.
You don't think for any reason it should be lower or higher? With
I
all like
feel
the
like-
internet, you know, people learn more quicker and stuff, or do you think no?
I think there's like, at like the age of like maybe 13, 14, you start learning about politics, so it gives you a good amount of time to develop an opinion,
Okay.
kind of like where you stand. But with like, I feel like if you push anything too earlier, it will like, people may jump to conclusions or not have a full understanding of what they're voting for. I feel like if you push it back later, I feel like it's like kind of like limiting the amount of people that can vote. Like we still want a good amount, like a larger database, not database, more people that can vote.
So going off of that, in the 2020, 66% of the people only voted that were able to vote. So do you say that's a lot of people?
No, I think a lot of people will be closer to like over 75%.
So then, how do you think we can change that? Because like in some places like Australia, they cause fees if you don't vote. Do you think that's possible, or you think that's like not possible in a country like U.S.?
I believe we shouldn't cost fees. Like I feel like if you don't want to vote, you don't have to, but you should vote. But like I think there should be easier ways of voting.
Of accessing voting?
Yeah, of accessing voting. Yeah.
Okay,
I think
okay.
that would encourage more people to vote.
And do you feel that like people with felons, even if it's something as simple as I stole something and I went to jail and like that's it, do you think those people should be able to vote too? Because right now in some states, all felons cannot vote, no matter if it's as silly as anything.
I think it depends on the type of crime.
Okay.
Like, if it's
So there should be like categories of okay.
Yeah. If it's like a minor misdemeanor, like I don't think you should be able to remove that person's right to vote.
Okay.
But like if they like, murdered a large amount of people, then
They shouldn't be able to.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
What's your name?
Richard,
What grade do you teach?
10th grade.
10th grade. What are your opinions on like the voting age? Do you think it should be higher or lower? Or you think it's just right?
I think it should be 16, actually.
16?
Right.
Is there like a reason why? Like,
Yeah, because I think right now, given the ease of access to information, that by the age of 16, you're capable of making an informed decision on issues.
So you're more like with the youth then.
Totally am.
Okay. About voting, do you know that felons cannot vote in some states?
In some states,
Do
right.
you agree with that policy?
No. I do not agree with that policy because it has a racial component to it, because as we all know, the American justice system tends to skew towards a greater conviction rate amongst persons of color. So I believe that the idea of felons who have served their time and who have performed their sentence are being discriminated against because they are potential Democratic voters, because they tend to be persons of color. So I think that felons should have the right to vote restored.
Okay. So for the 2020 presidential election, 2/3 of the U.S. eligible voters voted. Do you think that's a high number, low, or are you surprised by that number?
It's a surprisingly low number, and it means that we need to get people
The teacher with Aiden Harder, please
less
dial 2100. Aiden Harder, 2100,
alienated
please.
from the system and more involved in the system, so they see voting not only as an obligation, but as something that they should be invested in and engaged in.
And do you think that, I know in like Australia,
Yeah.
they have this like policy where if you don't vote, you get like, I forget, it's like a tax or it's
Right.
a fee you have
Yeah.
to pay.
Yeah.
Do you think the U.S. could enforce that, or
I
do you think
think-
that's even possible for the U.S. to enforce?
Well, people will have a breakdown, but I think it's a great idea. I think it should be enforced. I think people who who share in the benefits of life in America have an obligation to participate in the civic life of America.
What's your name, sir?
Matthew German.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
See you again too.
When do you think people are able to vote?
When are people able to vote?
Yeah, when do you think people are
In
able
the
to vote?
United States, they're able to vote at 17 if they're going to be 18 in the next general election, or,
Nice.
or 18 otherwise.
Do you think the age should be higher or lowered?
Neither really. I think it's a pretty reasonable age. If I had to pick one of those two options, I think lowering it a year or two would be fine.
Okay. Who do you think can vote or should be able to vote?
I think everybody should be able to vote, and I think anybody who is not a felon in most states can vote. Every state has different laws, so a lot of places convicted felons, formerly convicted felons, cannot vote, but I think they should be able to.
So you think it's not fair, that rule, that they should still
I
be
think
able
they should be able to vote.
Okay,
I think
okay.
people in prison should even be able to vote, truthfully.
Why do you think people in the country don't vote?
I think sometimes they're too busy, sometimes they think that, or sometimes they actually don't care, sometimes they think that their vote won't matter, either because there's so many people voting or their state or district is so heavily voting in one direction that it never changes, and therefore it probably really doesn't matter too much in some cases.
Okay, thank you, Mr. German, for talking to us today on
My
your
pleasure,
opinions.
anytime.
Good. Now, after hearing about all these different opinions upon our current state of voting, I want to leave the final question on how you feel about voting. That's all for today. I'm Eli.
I'm Gio.
And thank you for listening to our podcast.